Pat Tillman should always be remembered as a national icon. Some may ask, who is Pat Tillman? Well, let me tell you just a little bit about this late, great man. Pat Tillman was a leader throughout his entire life. I read a story about Pat in his younger days. He was eating in a bar, and one of his friends got in a fight outside. His friend was a small guy who was sickly, and he got jumped by 3 other guys. Once Pat heard the news, he rushed outside and hit the one guy, and the other 2 ran away. Well, Pat continued to brutalize the guy and beat him pretty bad, giving him a concussion, and the guy suffered several broken teeth. Pat wrote down his name and address on a sheet of paper and left it with the guy, who was soon rushed to the hospital. Pat attended Arizona State University and was on the football team. Even though he was on the football team, he had enough time and knowledge to have a 3.8 cumulative GPA. He was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in the class of 2010. Leadership, like Pat shows, is under great pressure when one joins the armed services. Pat, like many others, answered the call after September 11th because people needed to. He turned down $3.6 million from the Arizona Cardinals to enlist at a recruiting office in Denver, Colorado in 2002. He became a U.S. Army Ranger. His platoon was nicknamed the Black Sheep. They left for Iraq on a 3.5-month deployment shortly after he got done with basic and AIT, which is Advanced Individual Training. After they returned from the deployment, Pat went through the 61-day Ranger School, which is in Florida. Pat, like many others, it is typical to lose 15 to 20 pounds, which is a lot considering you have to be at a certain body fat percentage even to be in the military. Once you return from that, if you're successful, you become a tabbed ranger. And those tabs are worn on your left shoulder, right up here, with your unit patch right here. The tabs go on top. I don't have my tabs on my uniform right now because it's freshly washed. As soon as he returned, the Black Sheep left on another deployment. Like any soldier would, Pat gave his life to save his brothers. A broken down vehicle in a small villa in Iraq led the platoon to be split into 2 separate elements. The first element contained Pat and left on a different course than the second one. The second one, which was led by a local tow truck driver towing the downed vehicle, had to turn around because their path was blocked. The first unit, containing Pat, went through a small canyon, which was great for an ambush, but people were tense, but nothing happened. And as the second unit passed through, about 10 minutes later, they came under heavy fire, and they got on the radio and contacted the first element. The first element rushed from their vehicles back to the canyon, with Pat in the lead. Pat, leading the charge, got there first and started laying down suppressive fire. He went up the chain of command and asked the person in charge of him whether he could move to a better position to lay down better fire, and he got the okay. Pat moved by himself and came under heavy fire. Well, the heavy fire was coming from his own guys on the heavy machine guns from the vehicles. They just couldn't tell the difference, I guess. Pat was killed in action on April 22nd, 2004 at 6:43 p.m. from friendly fire. Pat Tillman displayed love and compassion to his family and loved ones until the very end, and gave his life for the men he considered to be brothers. Pat will always be remembered as an icon, not just for turning down millions of dollars. Imagine that. Would you turn down millions of dollars to join the Army? I know many people that wouldn't, but Pat did. He turned down millions of dollars from the NFL to defend his country. But he's also known for his ability to resolve conflict and always seem to do the right thing, even until the very end.